I certainly wasn't expecting to love a Minecraft-style block-building game based on a decades-old JRPG franchise as much as I did Dragon Quest Builders 2. Even though the combat is a bit weak and the controls can be frustrating at times, it manages to be both a great construction game and an engrossing, full-fledged RPG with tons of memorable areas and characters. I never played the first Dragon Quest Builders, and I didn't feel like I needed to in order to get what was going on. There are tons of references back to the classic Dragon Quest games that come across as nice touches if you catch them. Familiar enemies, some returning locations and bosses, and nostalgic victory music. Even the minimap looks like an old-school Dragon Quest overworld. And, well, if you don't already know why it's a big deal that this guy's name is Malroth, I encourage you not to look it up so you don't spoil anything for yourself. The biggest surprise for me was that Dragon Quest Builders 2 is a proper RPG with leveling, gear, magic items, dungeons, and boss fights. Rather than settling for dumping a bunch of Dragon Quest decorations into a Minecraft clone, what Omega Force and Square Enix have given us is more like a main series-worthy JRPG with exploration and crafting elements added as a bonus on top. I never felt that compromises were made on the elements of one genre to fit the elements of the other, which is quite an accomplishment. When you're not putting together saloons, throne rooms, and wheat fields, you'll find yourself journeying above and below striking vistas to defeat monsters, retrieve magic items, and recruit new allies. There's an especially cool section that takes place in a huge underground temple complex with puzzles, traps, and some tricky platforming. All along the way to each of these, you'll come across optional quests, hidden caches of loot, and puzzle shrines that can be solved to unlock rare items. The one fairly weak aspect is combat, and it's unfortunate that such an important pillar is crumbling when so much else works so well. It's a real-time hack-and-slash system that lacks a block, dodge, or even a strafe button. On easier enemies, I just wailed on them toe-to-toe usually and absorbed any of their hits that came my way. Bigger bosses with special attacks that you can't afford to take on the nose can only be avoided by sprinting forward past them and running around in clumsy circles until their animation finishes. Your character's main special attack takes so long to charge up that it actually does less damage per second than just button mashing, so I almost never used it. Some of the boss fights do have fun, unique mechanics, and there are some very cool field battles where you fight dozens of monsters alongside a personal army of NPCs. Those were entertaining in a chaotic, I don't even really know what's going on, but this is pretty cool kind of way. Overall, combat is not completely unenjoyable, but I never really felt my skills were being tested in an interesting way. Luckily, the construction and exploration pillars go a long way toward making up for this. While it can be nice to be dropped into a game like Minecraft to build whatever you can think of with no restrictions, Dragon Quest Builders 2 encourages you to take fallow fields, a dried up mining town, or a ruined city, and build them up with specific structures and services into something that looks like a real, functional, lived-in settlement. I felt like I still had the freedom to make these places my own, but the objectives I had to meet were fuel for my creativity, like a good writing prompt. And seeing a vibrant community come together over time is a much more rewarding progression mechanism than anything involving stats or gear, especially when it comes to the wondrous great projects that serve as the capstones to each area. The overall story and dialogue are fairly simplistic and at times seem geared toward a very young audience to their detriment. But it gets pretty exciting with some dramatic crescendos and sizzling intrigue toward the end. The three main islands you visit build toward this, and each has a very unique look, personality, and backstory to sink your teeth into. From the blighted grasslands of Furrowfield to the parched Old West-inspired Crumble Dun, you'll find a variety of challenges, new and charming NPCs to join your growing throng, and tons of varied, dramatic landscapes to explore. Each one feels lovingly crafted, and put together, they make up one of my favorite RPG worlds to explore in quite a while. I did wish that exploration were a bit less fiddly, though. The controls on PS4, even aside from the frustrating combat I mentioned earlier, just don't feel particularly intuitive or well thought out. My ongoing nemesis was not any of the servants of the evil Hargon, but the fact that the button to switch tools is the same one used for speak and activate. So if a party member stepped in front of me while I was trying to get my hammer out, I might have to hear about their day for the 30th time before I could continue. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is an admirable RPG and an admirable building game, which seems in most cases to have gotten the best bits of both of its parent genres. Clunky, overly straightforward combat and unintuitive controls drag it down a bit, but it still manages to soar above all of the less ambitious Minecraft clones we've seen over the years. Even with the main story behind me, I'm still itching to spend time exploring its excellent environments and making them my own. For more blocks and bricks, check out our reviews of Super Mario Maker 2 and Forza Horizon 4 LEGO Speed Champions. And for everything else, stick with IGN.